Genetically modified crops have existed for a long time, not just in the United States, but in many foreign countries also. With all the benefits they create, such as increased shelf life, shorter maturation time, higher yields, and a beginning to a cleaner environment due to herbicidal plants, why wouldn't farmers want to switch to genetically modified crops? I am John Brink, and I'm going to tell you why the use of genetically modified crops is necessary to enable farmers to feed the world's growing population. There are different names for genetically modified crops, a history of them, different modifications, and there are many controversies over genetically modified crops. Many different names exist for genetic modifications. It is also called biotechnology, gene splicing, recombinant DNA, or genetic engineering. The term biotechnology brings to mind many different ideas, such as the development of new types of animals or unlimited sources of human therapeutic drugs, but in this case, according to www.diet.com, it means solving world hunger by transferring genetic material from one organism to another with the techniques such as cross-fertilization to produce desired traits. The process of modifying crops to the desired traits could take generations. After a new crop is created, breeders conduct field testing for several seasons to make sure only desirable changes occur. Since the beginning of biotechnology, there has been a number of claims from anti-biotechnology activists that genetically modified crops don't increase yields. Some have claimed that GM crops actually have lower yields than non-GM crops. But both claims are false. In agriculture, desirable crop characteristics are known as traits. One of the most important traits is yield. Improving crop yield can be accomplished through both breeding and biotechnology. The history of genetic engineering can either be a short or lengthy trip, dependent on where people start. Biotechnology traces as far back as 8000 BC when humans first started domesticating plants for food. Many point back to Charles Darwin and the origin of species. Modern genetic engineering did not begin to take flight until the discovery of the structural components of DNA in 1953 by James Watson and Francis Crick. Frederick Sanger and his teams were the first to fully sequence a genome of an organism, a bacterium, in 1997. Burnell states a genome is a full set of chromosomes which carry the majority of an organism's DNA and its genes. However, most of the main agriculture crops such as corn, soybeans, rice, and canola have not been fully sequenced. Currently, there are two kinds of research in GM crops: industrial and academic. Industrial efforts are carried out by companies with the intent to sell modified seeds to farmers and have GM foods brought for either animal or human consumption. Academic research is carried out on a smaller scale in universities, often just to show that it can be done. Most small research groups hope a company will note their efforts and want to buy the technique for full commercial exploitation. According to www.monsanto.com, approximately 95% of soybeans and 75% of corn in the United States are GM. More than 95% of soybeans in Argentina and half of the soybeans grown in Brazil are GM. A farmer in Minnesota said, "I have been using GM products for years now. They have increased my yields and my profit." There are many modifications of plants. One of them is to improve the developed GM traits that are designed to directly increase yield. Monsanto made a public commitment to double yields in key crops by the year 2030. Another GM trait is drought, salinity, tolerance, and nitrogen increase. It is difficult for farmers to grow crops where there is light, salty soil and the conditions are dry. A quick solution to this problem would be drought, salinity, tolerance crops. These plants can withstand long periods of drought or high salt content in soil. According to Gulrichson, scientists are developing hybrids to increase nitrogen use efficiency by 30%. Many crops exist that have been modified to the producer's needs. For example, Philip stated, "I wanted a plant that could withstand the cold temperatures in the spring, so I started using products with cold tolerance modifications." According to Liang, the scale of genetically modified foods has been allowed without proper assessment to risk health. That claim is false. The GM products that are currently on the international market have all passed risk assessment conducted by national authorities. If there was a modified crop that had an issue, biotechnologists would find the problem and cure it before stating that crop is not harmful. Today I explained to you genetically modified crops are necessary to enable farmers to feed the world's growing population. I talked about the uses of genetically modified crops and how it is necessary to feed the world's growing population. Also, I went over the history and the different modification of plants. Genetic modification is an adequate way of feeding the world's hunger. For the past decade, scientists and farmers have been witnessing the success of biotechnology. This technology is helping farmers throughout the world to produce higher yields while reducing pesticides and soil erosion. The benefits and safety of biotechnology has been proven over the past decade in countries where over half of the world's population are helping meet the growing demand of food production while preserving the environment for future generations.